Okay, sorry I'm late. Ugh, the cats refuse to come in. Only like 4 of the cats have come in the house. The kittens are refusing to come in. Like, they want to be out all night. Dustin's gonna have to make them come in. It's gonna be a good time. The raccoons are fed. They apparently they don't like bread. Like, I tried to feed him bread and he wouldn't eat it. These raccoons are so fucking spoiled. Like, they don't just eat anything anymore. They will only eat the dog food. They will not. They're so fucking spoiled. Like, seriously fucking spoiled. And I hope Miss Muddy comes so I can explain myself. Miss Muddy, please come. Because I found something to watch. I lost a subscriber. I wanna text her. Let's see. At Miss Muddy, are you coming? She might not come, but I hope she does. She's the best thing that ever happened to my channel. And I completely owe that lady like my whole. I owe her my whole thing. Maybe I should. Okay. Am I? Oh, you are here. Oh, thank God. Listen. Yes. I found something for us to watch. Just know it's kind of brutal. And you probably know who it is already. Although I've never heard anybody really talk about him or his trial. Although, if I can find his trial, I'd fucking watch it because I want to know about it. Do you know about David Parker Ray? The toy box killer. This is a hell of a documentary. And if Teddy comes, can you ask Teddy to come? Because I've got to ask him one question. And then he can leave. Because I got to ask him a question. Because if he watches wrestling, that means he's amazing. And he might know what Pink Floyd The Wall is. It's about a guy. It's completely insane. But he ends up with PTSD. Although they didn't know it was called that back then. They called it, what, hysteria? and they didn't make vibrators for men. So, whatever. Okay, well, you are in for some fucking shit. So, get your coffee, get your bowl, get your cigarette, because this is going to be one worth not getting up. So, we need to take 1 second. I gotta get a refill on my coffee. Okay, is that fine? Can we get a refill? Hold on. Where am I at? Yep, good. It came with a warning. Oh, I should put this in chat, right? Oh, I liked. And we're about to add this to my chat. Put this in chat, right? Okay. Okay. Paste. Okay. There we go. There's that. Where am I at? I'm right here. Okay. So we're getting ready to watch something called David Parker Ray. Is this guy right here. He is one of the worst people in the whole entire world. And we're going to watch about him. The link to this show is in the chat right there. It's by a channel called Night something. Night Docs. And it's about this guy called David Parker Ray. He is a sadistic weirdo and he has a couple girls involved in this scheme. So, there's further ado. Okay, without further ado, David Parker Ray. Oh shit, I can't read chat. Yeah, look, I got a question for you. Who's that, teddy bear? I can't fucking see. Hold on. Okay. Teddy bear. Yes. Do you know what Pink Floyd The Wall is? Because I want to watch it on Discord next weekend. And I invite anybody to come. Well, whoever's on my Discord. I would like us all to have a family night and watch Pink Floyd The Wall and discuss the insanity that is this man and how close to real life it is. What do you think about that, teddy bear? Do you know that movie? Oh, did what's happening? Why can't I see chat? The toy box killer was a sick. Yes, that's exactly what I said. But not a lot of people know who that is. So I figured it would be something new for a lot of people. Do you know the movie? I think I've seen it, but that was years ago. Right, yeah, when it wasn't really understandable because no one knew what the fuck any of that was. But I think I understand what it means, and I would really like to discuss it because around here, nobody likes to talk philosophical or psychological things with me because I talk over people's heads. So I would like to find some people that wouldn't mind discussing what it meant. And I want to watch it on Discord um next Saturday because I know Sunday's a church day for a lot of people. Maybe I should not make my videos on Sunday and make them on Saturday instead. So yeah, we'll do my Bible video and then we'll hop over on Discord and watch Pink Floyd The Wall on Saturday. What do you think? Okay. Anyway, let's watch David Parker Ray.
Hello there, bitch. I'm going to tell you in detail why you have been kidnapped, what's going to happen to you. You are obviously here against your will. You're going to be kept chained in a variety of different positions, usually with your legs or knees forced wide apart. You'll be raped thoroughly and repeatedly in every hole you've got. You're going to be drugged up real heavy with a combination of sodium pentothal and phenobarbital. You're not going to remember a thing about this little adventure or what has happened to you.
Elephant Butte, New Mexico. A quiet retirement community 2 hours north of the Mexican border. Only about 700 households. Nothing ever happens here. You know your neighbor and everyone else in town, and they know you. You get up, you go to work, you see the same people, see the same places day after day. It's the kind of town that's so small and quiet, it's not uncommon for people to leave their homes unlocked. With an average income of $30,000 a year, it's not like you have anything worth stealing anyway.
Son of a bitch. I cannot see the chat. I can't. And you guys are talking to me and I can't read the chat. So it looks like nobody's saying anything. And I am so fucking sorry because I'm sure it looks like I'm ignoring you, but I'm not. I swear. If I'm free and not okay. Okay, thank you guys for watching.
The idea of anything out of the ordinary or newsworthy happening in this town is pretty much inconceivable. Other than a few troublesome kids now and then getting into mischief, nobody really ever has anything to worry about. March 12, 1999. 22-year-old Cynthia Virgil Jaramillo is running for her life down a dirt road, covered in blood, wearing nothing except for a metal choker collar padlocked to her neck like an escaped animal. Running for her life, her attacker hot on her trail. She desperately tried to orientate herself shaking off the numerous amounts of forced drugs in her system designed to make her delirious, forgetful, compliant. She had no idea where she was, what day it was, where she could go. Had it been a couple of days? A week? She could only guess how much time had passed since she was taken captive. With no idea where she was, she only knew that she had to get away, and the danger was closing in on her fast. Finally, a trailer. A sign of civilization. She had no idea if it was safe, only knowing that the alternative was far worse. She had to try. She barged into the trailer, the homeowner startled and shocked at the bloody, bruised, and panicked naked woman barging uninvited into their home. It was immediately apparent that she was in trouble. Cynthia begged and pleaded with them to keep her safe, crying and pleading in hysterics as she tried to explain what had just happened to her. She collapsed on the floor and fell unconscious. What had she been through? The homeowner called the police, who promptly came and rescued her and arrested the man by the name of David Parker Ray, a man they would soon learn would be the stuff of nightmares that even seasoned investigators would have a hard time coping with. David Parker Ray was a troubled man from the start. He was raised by his grandparents after his violent, severely alcoholic and abusive father Cecil left the family and moved to Albuquerque. His mother Nettie couldn't handle the stress of raising 10-year-old David and 8-year-old Peggy, so she dropped them off with their paternal grandparents and moved back in with her own family. The children rarely saw their own parents ever again, and neither their mother or father had any apparent bond with their children thereafter. David's grandfather raised them in an oppressively strict Christian fundamentalist environment. Misbehavior of any kind was met with violent beatings. A friend of David's would later describe his terror of his friend David's grandfather, saying, "His grandfather was very, very strict. He came from the old school where you had to be tough to survive. If his grandfather wanted David to do something, he'd jump. Maybe in today's terms he was abusive, but we called it being strict." Everywhere David went, he was exposed to violence and bullying. His father tormented him and beat him. Both his parents disposed of him. His oppressive grandfather beat him often and expected him to meet standards that hardly anyone could ever meet. And he was bullied and beaten at school so mercilessly. He was a loner, shy and reserved, and hardly opened up to anyone. He spent most of his time alone on his grandfather's ranch. The results of endless torment and beatings from everyone in his life had a profound influence on him and his development into puberty. His sister described finding lewd and violent pornographic images hidden in his room when he was 13. His taste for violence and bondage was early and never left him. Not only did it never leave him, it grew. According to multiple sources who knew him best, he boasted to the few people close to him that his first murder was at a very young age, as a young teenager, where he abducted a woman at knife point, tied her to a tree, and tortured her to death. Years went by as he became more deeply involved with sadomasochism and violence. He got married twice and met his third wife at the age of 27, 18-year-old Glenda Burdine, in 1966. They had a daughter named Glenda Jean Ray the following year, whose importance to this story cannot be overstated, and you'll hear more about her later. 3 years after the birth of their daughter, David grew bored and left his family to join the hippie revolution in 1969. By this time, David, at the age of 30, was hitchhiking across New Mexico with a pretty blonde girl named Sally. They shacked up the owner of a truck stop and his girlfriend. David's now pregnant girlfriend, Sally, confided in the girlfriend of the truck stop owner that she had lost her virginity to David and that she was pregnant. Days later, Sally and all her possessions were gone. When they asked David where Sally was, he shrugged, saying that she was a free spirit and had decided to leave. As disturbed as they were about this behavior from Sally, which they considered to be out of character after having gotten to know her, they had no reason to disbelieve David, and Sally was soon forgotten. David shortly thereafter got bored of the hippie lifestyle as well, patched things up with his wife, and moved back in with his family. Although he pretended to be the consummate father figure, he was anything but, getting deeper and deeper into the underground bondage scene. The years continued onward. 2 more failed marriages. David moved to the quiet community of Elephant Butte, New Mexico in the 80s, where he would take up residence at 513 Bass Road the remainder of his life. The quiet, sleepy town of Elephant Butte was the perfect place to hide a dark secret. A small retirement community of only about 700 homes, situated right on the shores of Elephant Butte Lake, an enormous reservoir of deep, opaque, algae-filled water. He spent most of the 80s getting deeper and deeper into the bondage community, becoming exposed to habits and deviancy and networked contacts that...
Where did they find these kind of magazines? And they weren't allowed to show sex back then. So literally it was just girls. I don't understand. I never heard about these things before.
fueled his unbridled...
It's like, I don't know. Have you heard of this before? Like these kind of magazines?
thirst for violence and torture. His behavior became well established, kidnapping women and young girls, torturing them for days to satisfy his deviant cravings, and then selling them into slavery in Mexico once he was done with them, conveniently only a 2-hour drive south from his new lair in Elephant Butte. It's worth noting that by 1984 he had begun boasting to his friends about his intimate knowledge about every square inch of Elephant Butte Lake, spending countless weekends there in his sailboat. He enjoyed water sports, boat parties, fishing. Though the lake had several species of fish, it was best known for the yellow and flathead catfish that prowl its depths, reaching up to 80 pounds, and known for being voracious omnivores, eating anything and everything it came in contact with, including the occasional meal of human remains. David had a reputation of being a kind and gentle person who was kind to animals and routinely found injured animals to nurse back to health, a stark contrast to the darkness he secretly hid all his life. Friends who assumed he was speaking darkly hypothetical recall him describing while on his boat the best places in the lake to hide a body. He described the need to cut them open to release outgassing, fill the cavity with stones, wrap them in chicken wire, and after dumping them in the lake, the catfish would take care of the rest. And the zero visibility and algae in the water meant that no one would ever find what the catfish didn't take care of themselves. David Ray's daughter, Glenda Jean Ray, who went by the nickname Jessie, was the spitting image of her father, who she adored. She rarely saw her father, who was constantly traveling, working odd mechanical jobs. Growing up, she was exposed at a very young age to her father's masochistic lifestyle, who did little to hide his deviancy from her. She grew up with not only a tolerance for it, but developed similar cravings and deviancy that she saw in her father. She only recognized that there was a problem with her father at the age of 19, when she witnessed a bondage torture session with a prostitute that resulted in the woman...
I bet you it's like Amsterdam and shit. You're absolutely right. I get it.
...screaming for her life, fleeing naked out of David Ray's home in terror, never to return. She filed a complaint with the FBI and gave a sworn complaint against her father. The astonished FBI agents listened as she told tale after tale of her deviant father kidnapping and torturing women, and later transporting them to Mexico, selling them all into sexual slavery. After bringing then 46-year-old Ray in for questioning himself several times, not only did he not hide his behavior, he gleefully told them in graphic, enthusiastic detail about his deviant lifestyle, telling them that he had been interested in bondage since the age of 13 and had been extremely active in the bondage community since the age of 28, even telling the FBI agents that it was difficult for him to be satisfied until he thought of murder. As shocking and deviant as his behavior was, there was no specific crime that they could pinpoint, no victim that they could identify. Although they had a near confession from him, they were forced to close the report without further action, leading to another 13 years of kidnappings, torture, and murder. One of Jesse's best friends told reporters years later, "This is like the last time Jesse tried to break away, to say to her dad that..."
What do you think so far, Mrs. Mud Duck? I hate calling you that, Miss Muddy. What do you think so far? I have to stop this and ask questions. I hate it, but I have to do it. Y'all know that. What do you think about it?
She saw his behavior and said, "No, this is wrong." She reported him, and what happens? They didn't do anything. It was indeed the first and only time that Jessie cooperated with law enforcement about her father. It's believed that after this experience with the FBI, Jessie began to fully embrace who her father was, and he kept no secrets from her. People who knew them best described their relationship as close, uncomfortably close. Jessie gave birth to a daughter herself a few years later in 1990, denying all the constant rumors that the biological father was David Ray, her own father. Emboldened by his brush with the FBI, who had failed to pin him down for his decades of crimes, David Ray decided to push his deviancy and thirst for violence into a realm unseen before. An unparalleled mechanic and craftsman, Ray married his skills and passion for violence, torture, and unbridled deviancy into what would be his magnum opus, a kind of laboratory where he could put his decades of experience into the art of pain into practice. He purchased a 22-foot-long cargo trailer, hung up a handmade sign right inside that read, "Satan's Den," and he got to work. He installed an air conditioning unit to keep himself comfortable inside. The toy box, as he called it, would be a...
This motherfucker thinks he's that special. Bitch, please. Oh, Satan's Den. I'm so fucking special. I hate that shit when everybody's like, I'm a friend of Satan. It's like, Satan would not be your friend. God won't even be your friend. Shut the fuck up. Are you kidding me? I'm willing to bet Satan likes you if you're smart. Remember, he's like an intellectual creature. Like, he only likes you if you're smart, not violent and evil. That's not what it is.
Constant work in progress over the years. It's estimated that he personally invested over $100,000.
Miss Muddy, what do you think about that? Do you think Satan would be friends with people like this?
Into it. It was escape-proof, soundproof, with a reinforced frame and a deadbolt lock. The ceilings and walls were adorned with unimaginable horrors. Elaborate systems of pulleys, gurneys, weights, pliers, clamps, whips, scalpels, chains, padlocks, drawings and figurines of women in various methods of torture. Medical cabinets filled with syringes and chemicals. There was a coffin lined with ventilation holes and various rings to restrain his victims as he sealed them shut inside. And most horrifying of all, an actual medical grade gynecological chair, modified to restrain victims and position limbs as he saw fit, positioned in the center of toy box like a throne of pain. Hooked up to the head and the midsection were electrodes that he attached to a generator used to electrocute various parts of their bodies. In a move of absolute evil arrogance, he set up video recording equipment to film his dark crimes, installing monitors positioned so that his victims would be forced to watch themselves as he inflicted unimaginable pain upon them. It's believed that he filmed every single session, selling the footage to his dark network of contacts in the underground bondage world, who had a high interest and were happy to pay top dollar for the most extreme footage and even snuff films that he shot. His captive victims would be kept for days, sometimes up to 3 months, in unimaginable conditions. Always careful to clean up and leave no trace of evidence, he made sure that none of his victims could be identified in the footage. He kept them until he was bored with them. No one ever saw the inside of the toy box unless you were a victim of it or a captor. It always began the same way, and he never deviated from his time-tested methods. His victim was abducted from the road, a bar, or by luring a prostitute into his shabby RV, violently beaten and shackled.
Look, I want to say something about that because I've been in this situation before, not knowing people. And I'm telling you what, God really fucking loves me because I never ran into people like this. And I was in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is nuts. And this never happened to me. It happened to one person, and she was a transvestite named Remy. She was on the news. But I am one lucky son of a bitch. God loves me. How do you know he loves you? Like, what does he do?
He would take them back to 513 Bass Drive, keep them captive, chained to the bed, as he inflicted unimaginable amounts of pain, and then days later, they would be blindfolded and brought to the toy box. When the blindfold was removed, they found themselves strapped to the gynecological chair. Looking around, they would see the various tools of torture, syringes, other items that I'm too uncomfortable to hear myself say out loud. They would see David Ray hovering over them like a victorious predator. Then he would play the tape. His frequency of bringing new victims in led to him being tired of giving them the instructions himself, so he made a taped set of audio instructions, a kind of orientation to prepare his victims for the true nightmare to begin. I'm unwilling to read the words aloud, but you heard a part of the original audio of that tape at the beginning, and I'll leave a link to a Pastebin post with the full transcript of what each of his victims heard before this nightmare began. At the end of their captivity, they would be washed, thoroughly scraped of any DNA evidence, given the clothes that they had come in months before, after months of being naked, and given a cocktail of very powerful hallucinogenic drugs that made them forget the entire ordeal completely, unable to identify what had happened to them, or even explain to their loved ones why they hurt so badly all over, or where they had been for so long. It's impossible to know how many victims saw the horrors of the toy box, but years later, the FBI would find hundreds and hundreds of tapes and photographs of his victims and their time inside. None would be identifiable.
Who had to watch these? Oh my God, who had to watch that? Somebody had to watch all of those. I feel so bad for that guy. I bet he quit right after that because who the fuck would watch all of the you have to being a cop, but oh my god. What do you think about that? Anybody can answer. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And please chat in the chat. Tell me what you think about the cop that had to watch all of those. Do you think he quit?
Except one. And it was all thanks to a blurry image of a tattoo. And this tattoo led them to one of the most important witnesses who helped convict David Ray. The tattoo was blurry and hard to make out, but after enhancing the video as best they could, they released an image of the tattoo. A woman named Kelly Van Cleve soon came forward recognizing her own tattoo. She had spent time in Elephant Butte and was missing 3 days of her life that she couldn't account for, followed by severe bouts of depression, anxiety, and nightmares. In the summer of 1996, Kelly Van Cleve was a regular patron at a bar called Raymond's Lounge in the nearby town of Truth or Consequences. A year earlier, a woman named Jill Troya
That's where Mick Foley's from. Truth or Consequences, New Mexico.
disappeared and hadn't been seen since, after a bitter argument with
I'm sorry, that's where Mankind is from. Mick Foley's from New York.
Jessie Ray, David Ray's daughter. It's now assumed, but never proven, that Jessie was responsible for the disappearance. Kelly was having a rough time in a new marriage that she had rushed into, and had become good friends with Jessie Ray, David's daughter. One night, after a particularly nasty fight with her brand new husband, she stormed out and headed to Raymond's Lounge to drink and vent her frustrations. She talked to Jessie about her difficulties and had a single beer. Other patrons and friends of hers left.
That's what you said yesterday, Miss Muddy. You have to let the person get mad first. I'm sorry you keep stopping this, but I have to. Copyright.
And it was only her and Jessie. Feeling uneasy and disoriented from the drugs that Jessie had slipped her secretly into her beer, she decided she needed to go home. But her ride had long since departed. Jessie offered her a place to stay at her father's home in Elephant Butte and drove her there, where she was held at knife point, bound, and introduced to the toy box by Jessie and her father. 3 days later, David Ray drove her home to the in-laws, telling them that he found her wandering the beach in a disoriented state. As he returned her, they were fuming, assuming she had gone off on some sort of drug binge. Her new husband annulled the marriage. He and his mother laid into her viciously, telling her how irresponsible she was for leaving for 3 days and not telling anyone. Confused, destitute, unable to account for the missing 3 days, the bleeding that she was experiencing, and the injuries that she couldn't explain. She took the few belongings she had left, and then she left Elephant Butte. 3 years later, she was living in Colorado and remarried, but still suffering from the ordeal, constant nightmares, depression, and an inability to be intimate with her new husband, or even allow him to see her uncovered. She was haunted by the nightmares of being tortured and suspended in midair. Through psychological counseling, she was able to piece together most of the ordeal that she suffered over the course of 3 days in David Parker Ray's toy box. She was hardly the first, and certainly not the last victim to experience the horrors that she could now clearly see on the footage the FBI showed her of her helpless, naked body being put through unthinkable trauma. The impressionable Roy Yancey was fresh out of the Navy in 1995. Clean-cut, proper, considered quite a charmer with the ladies, returned home to truth or consequences. A far cry from the young man who, in the mid-'80s, ran with a group of friends whom many in the town considered a satanic cult, made up of high school-aged renegades. They spent their time wreaking highly organized and unsettling havoc, sacrificing pets of neighbors, delivering messages with occultist satanic symbols just to people that they didn't like, and all sorts of mischief considered by police at the time to be criminal acts. Through police investigations, the best lead that the police got were continuous references to someone described as an older man named David, who recently had moved to Elephant Butte a few years prior, but they were never able to definitively confirm who this David was. Fresh out of the Navy with a new determination to walk the straight and narrow this time, he couldn't help but getting back into his old ways after becoming friends with Jessie Ray. The two were considered inseparable by people who knew them best. Although Roy was considered a decent person, he was highly impressionable, with a dark side that few saw. Jessie, who knew him best, nurtured this darkness over the course of their friendship. Jessie reintroduced him into the world of occult Satanism, which she had picked up from her father. It's unclear if Satanism was strongly held beliefs or just simply theatrics to complement the copious amounts of bondage and sadomasochism that she and her father practiced. The two became very close friends with a man named Kenneth Lee, a 43-year-old loner from Florida, a flamboyant gay man who was rumored to have a steady supply of drugs. Roy and Jessie visited him frequently. Neighbors described seeing Roy visit him especially often, leaving with a devious smile on his face. It's unclear what really happened, but when police were called to do a welfare check on Kenneth Lee on New Year's Day in 1996, after neighbors had complained of a foul smell coming from his apartment, they found his badly decomposed body in the front room. Splashes of blood were found all around, along with black candles and pentagrams drawn on the table. Amazingly, Kenneth's death was ruled a suicide by metallic poisoning when they found a doorknob lodged in his rectum and his stomach filled with screws and bolts. No charges have ever been filed. In July of 19...
What the fuck? I didn't even know that was a thing. How do you... What? Metallic poisoning. Who the fuck would unsubscribe themselves that way? That is fucking crazy, isn't it? That is crazy, right?
1997, the following year, a former girlfriend of his that he had at one time been extremely close with, Marie Parker, was in dire financial ruin. Homeless, she pitched a tent on the shores of Elephant Butte Lake and dropped her children off with a friend. Deciding to make a run to score some drugs, she agreed to meet with Jessie and Roy. She ended up at knife point in the back seat of David Parker Ray's truck driven by Jessie, as Roy restrained his former lover in the back seat.
Wow.
According to Roy's confession, they drove to David Ray's home, and she was introduced to the toy box.
Wow.
He claims he never went inside, where Jessie and her father kept Marie for 3 days. During that time, police organized a massive search and rescue operation in an effort to find Marie. At the end of the 3 days, Jessie and her father told Roy that they were done with her, and that it was time for her to go. Then, they brought Roy inside the toy box. Roy claims that he walked inside to find his naked and helpless ex-girlfriend Marie strapped to the gynecological chair. Jessie handed him a rope and said, "You know what you have to do." With so much police scrutiny into Marie's disappearance, David and Jessie were going to take no chances with her being found after they got what they wanted from her. David started the video recorder, and Roy approached Marie with the rope. He claims that as Jessie pointed a gun at him, he strangled Marie to death with the rope. The videotape was never found, and it's been hypothesized that David sold the tape as a snuff film, like he had done many other times. In Roy's confession to police a few years later, he claims that he, Jesse, and David wrapped her body in a blanket, drove to Monticello Canyon near Truth or Consequences, and tossed her body into the ravine, descending down with shovels to bury it under loose dirt under cover of darkness. The following day, Roy and Jesse left town and went to stay with an acquaintance in Galveston, Texas. They stayed for an entire year, waiting for the disappearance of Marie Parker to blow over. Years later, Roy led police to the exact spot they buried her, but she was nowhere to be found. Roy speculated that David Ray must have returned later and removed the body, depositing it elsewhere.
This lady. Wait, this lady? You're gonna love this, probably. Well, you might not love it, but it adds some spice to the whatever the fuck it's cooking right now.
As if this strange cast of characters needed any more to make this strange story any more complex. That's exactly what happened soon after Roy and Jesse returned to Truth or Consequences a year later. Returning to the local bar scene, they drank and partied hard, soon gaining the attention of a woman who had moved to town while they were away named Cindy Hendy. It was later discovered that Cindy was herself on the run from the law, moving down to Truth or Consequences to hide from the police in Washington state. With a rap sheet dating all the way back to 1979 with felonies such as larceny, forgery, and drugs and fraud, she wasn't about to go back to prison after trying to sell cocaine to an undercover cop. In a strange three-way relationship dynamic, Cindy soon began dating both Jesse and Roy, occasionally using David Parker Ray's trailer as a sort of love nest. Soon David became involved in the arrangement as well, throwing lewd free-for-all parties, with everyone sharing everyone. Cindy was especially interested in the bondage scene, and they enthusiastically introduced her to their own personal flavor of it. Except Cindy was not going to be a victim of it. As time went on, she and David became much closer, and the relationship between them became exclusive. Roy had since begun a relationship with a man named David Riviera, and Cindy did her best to become a dutiful housewife figure for David Ray, fixing him lavish meals, cleaning his house, and doing everything that she could to get his affection towards her, trying to fight off the competition of another woman fighting for David Ray's affection at the same time. On Halloween of 1998, David Ray threw a party in his trailer complete with alleged instances of black magic and witchcraft, performed by Cindy, who had been recently introduced to witchcraft by Roy Yancey. After a supposed black magic sacrifice to the devil, Cindy loudly announced her relationship with David Parker Ray to all the guests in attendance, which many found strange since she was openly also having a relationship with his daughter Jessie at the same time. Cindy and David became close very quickly. David found an equal in Cindy, or at least someone impressionable enough and wild enough to be molded into the kind of companion that he desired most. Slowly, he started letting her in closer and closer, revealing more about himself, testing the waters of what she was capable of handling. Finally, it was time to put her to the test. Cindy told David that she was going out of town for a wedding. Leaving him behind without someone to satisfy his deviant carnal desires was unacceptable to him. By this point, she was so far deep into the darkness he brought her into that the suggestion that he threw her didn't even faze her for a minute. They decided that it was time to kidnap a woman to keep as...
What do you think about this? Miss Muddy, didn't I say it gets so much more, I don't want to say better, but way more interesting, doesn't it? This is wild. Oh, shit.
a sex slave for David while she was away. Bringing her into the toy box, he gave her the grand tour and demonstrated on dolls, his scientific and methodical practiced art of inflicting pain. She eagerly absorbed every word, and he gave her an 18-point list that he had produced through the years of practice at his dark craft. It was a set of instructions for kidnapping and torture. The list is graphic, abhorrent, and I'm unwilling to read it in this video, but I'll leave a link to a Pastebin post with the list in the description if you really want to read it. Over the next 2 years or so, Cindy Hendy was no longer an innocent bystander, simply an enabler, or even an accessory. Cindy Hendy became an accomplice, just as deviant, just as cruel, and just as guilty as David Parker Ray himself for the kidnap, torture, and murder of untold women, just as eager to sadistically inflict pain and terror as her hopeful future husband. It was night when David Parker Ray and Cindy Hendy arrived in Albuquerque, seeking their next victim. After speaking with a local pimp and offering $30 for services, a 22-year-old Cynthia Virgil Jaramillo stepped into the rusty, beat-up RV. As she entered the back of the camper, Ray produced a badge telling her that they were law enforcement. She tried to make a break for it, back the way she came, but she was overpowered by the two of them, and a black leather mask slipped over her head, casting everything into blackness. Hours later, she found herself chained and bound, and as the mask was removed, she heard a voice coming from a nearby recording. Days later, after suffering unspeakable amounts of pain, terror, and abject humiliation at the hands of Ray and Hendy, Cynthia lay inside the house chained to the bed. David was at work while Cindy was in the kitchen preparing sandwiches. Although she was still chained and locked firmly in place, the keys to her restraints were carelessly left just out of reach. With little time before Cindy would surely come back, she inched her way closer and closer to the keys. Fumbling and trying not to make any noise, she managed to unlock herself. Knowing there was precious little time, she reached for the phone, dialing 911. Before she could connect, Cindy burst into the room and they fought ferociously, Cynthia knowing full well that her life was at stake. They punched and kicked and clawed at one another. Cynthia reached out and grabbed a hold of a nearby ice pick and ferociously stabbed Cindy in the skull, leaving a giant gash.
Yes, I'm calling for a young lady that ran into the house. She says she's been raped. She's got a chain on her and everything. 611 right away. This lady's naked and everything else. She said they've been holding her for 3 days.
After the police rescued her, after she was hiding in the trailer that was previously mentioned, the officers received notice of a 911 hang-up call only blocks away. In a town this small, where nothing happens, there was no way that this was not connected. Rushing to 513 Bass Road, the officers banged on the door. Receiving no answer, they allowed themselves in with probable cause of trouble. Finding shattered glass, blood, and endless amounts of pulley systems and chains, they called for backup. They would need far more than backup. What they witnessed in the brief glance around David Parker Ray's home was far more than the tiny police department of Elephant Butte was equipped to handle.
Here we go. The whole thing.
Nothing ever happens in Elephant Butte, a small town of 1,300 people, most of them over the age of 65. No one could have expected the absolute pandemonium, as more than 100 investigators from the New Mexico State Police and the FBI swarmed the town, and especially 513 Bass Road. Dozens of news stations from around the world, helicopters circling overhead all day. The quiet little town of Elephant Butte, where nothing ever happened, had just been put on the map and was now known throughout the world, but for all the wrong reasons. Investigators swarmed the small property, dividing it into 8 distinct search areas. They were having trouble getting a certain white cargo trailer open, and the keys were nowhere to be found. It took the locksmith only a few moments to get the deadbolt lock open. FBI Special Agent John Briscoe opened the small door into the cargo trailer and stepped inside. Holy shit. He saw the chair, the syringes, the whips, the chains, strange metallic bars labeled ankle spreader and knee spreader, the satanic imagery adorning the shelves, and a video camera. Could there possibly be actual video evidence of what the hell happened in here? 36-year-old FBI.
That's some shit you don't want to watch. Oh my God. I feel so bad for the cop that had to watch that shit.
Agent Patty Rust crowded around the monitor inside the toy box with a few of her fellow agents as they loaded the first of hundreds of tapes found around the property. All of them hands over their mouths, trying to hide the absolute shock of the things that they saw before them on the screen. Despite years of work covering the worst crimes imaginable, they were still unprepared for what they saw on the screen before them. They'd seen enough for now. They ejected the tape and each exited the toy box. One of them vomited on the ground as soon as they got outside. It was far worse than anything any of them had ever encountered. Patty was asked to go back inside and create detailed sketches of everything that she found within to hand over to the evidence response team. She did as she was asked. Over the course of 5 days, she spent hours sketching every detail of every horrible thing that she found in there, getting a closer look at the horrors than anyone would ever feel comfortable with. After 5 days, she turned in her assignment and was told to go home and get some rest. She returned to her family in El Paso, Texas. Just before midnight that night, she took out a revolver, held it against her head, and
Holy shit. Did you expect that? I've seen this documentary, but I must have missed that. Or I wouldn't ask the fucking stupid question I asked about what do you think happened? Oh my God. That man. uh,
Oh my me. Oh my me. Did not expect that.
ended her own life. The preliminary hearing and eventual trials of David Parker Ray, Jesse Ray, Roy Yancey, and Cindy Hendy were every bit as intricate, complex, twisted, and dramatic as the case itself, and probably deserves its own video on its own. I'll try and get through the most important aspects for the sake of time, though. As evidence was collected and leads were pursued, police arrested not only...
What do you think about me watching this trial? Trying to find it. What do you think?
David Ray and Cindy Hendy, but they also arrested Jesse Ray and Roy Yancey. Jessie never once betrayed her father and never cooperated with the police. She never admitted to the murders that she herself committed or was an accessory to. David Parker Ray proclaimed his innocence, vehemently telling investigators that not only was Cynthia Virgil a willing participant in a bondage session, but so was every other woman who ever entered his toy box, despite mountains of incriminating footage that they had, where the women showed no signs of consent. Cindy vehemently claimed no wrongdoing either, defying all evidence against her. Both of them appeared before the court at their arraignment, facing 93 years in jail each, $85,000 in fines, and bonds of $1 million. Facing the very real possibility of spending the rest of her life in jail, she became angry with David, blaming him for sucking her into what she later called his stupid bondage fantasies. She asked to meet with investigators and gave a full confession to everything she witnessed, was a part of, what he had told her about the other crimes that he had committed. She told them everything. If what she told them was true, it would make David Parker Ray one of the most sophisticated, thorough, and prolific serial killers in all of American history.
Yeah,
Police
this
had already
guy
found a map of
is-
Elephant Butte Lake with X's marked in various locations, and suspected there must be bodies. But this was the first actual link confirming their suspicions. Of particular interest to investigators was her
I'll look for it tomorrow. Tomorrow morning I'll look for it.
telling of an old boyfriend, Roy Yancey, who told her that he had killed the missing Marie Parker, who had been missing since 1997.
From what I understand is that he's had many years of kidnapping, torturing, and killing women.
How did you come up with the idea to kill Marie?
It was David Ray Parker's idea. I know they ended up giving me a rope and telling me to strangle her. And she wasn't dying fast enough.
Okay, but you said she wasn't dying fast enough. Was she struggling, or?
Yeah, she was struggling. I was told not to tell anybody anything, or I was going to be killed and thrown in the ditch.
And who told you that?
David.
He would
What?
soon be brought in, and he confessed as well.
He still ended up telling people as bullshit.
Leading police to the place that he, Jesse, and David Ray had dumped the body, only to discover upon their arrival that the body had been moved and disposed of elsewhere. As the trials went on for the kidnapping and torture of Kelly Van Cleve and Cynthia Virgil Jaramillo, with several dramatic moments themselves, David continued to proclaim his innocence. Even as the prosecutor played the enormously incriminating 45-minute orientation tape that he played for his victims, he continued to proclaim that it was all created for entertainment purposes.
Are you comfortable right now? I doubt it. Wrists and ankles chained, gagged, probably blindfolded. You are disoriented and scared too, I would imagine. You are obviously here against your will. Totally helpless. You've been snatched and brought here for us to train and use as a sex slave. You sound kind of far out. Well, I suppose it is to the uninitiated, but we do it all the time.
It wasn't until he realized how much legal trouble his daughter Jessie was in that he decided to change his tune. In exchange for her immediate release, he would plead guilty to all the charges against him for kidnapping and torturing Cynthia and Kelly. He would accept the maximum sentence in exchange for Jessie walking free from responsibility for her involvement in any of it. In September 2001, facing 12 counts of kidnapping, criminal penetration, and conspiracy to kidnap, Glenda Jean Jessie Ray walked out of prison with time served. She was given 5 years probation and is today a free woman. She left prison immediately, victorious and defiant. Roy Yancey, who allegedly killed at least 2 people himself, accepted a plea deal. He was released on parole in 2011 and is a free man to this day as well, living back in Truth or Consequences. Incredibly, he's even active on social media.
The girlfriend of suspected serial killer David Parker Ray is about to get out of prison next week after serving only about half her sentence.
Cindy Hendy served only half her sentence. She never expressed any remorse for her crimes, only self-pity for the situation she found herself in suffering for her crimes, blaming David for sucking into his stupid bondage fantasies, as she put it. Although she had numerous infractions while in prison, including possession of contraband and drugs, she walked out of prison on July 15, 2019, and is now a free woman with no supervision by the state. As vivid and horrifying as the murders were that David Parker Ray committed, he was never convicted for a single one of them. Police believed at the time that he was guilty of as many as 30 murders over the course of his life. A 2011 jailhouse interview with Cindy Hendy put the estimate much higher when she mentioned that he had once told her that he had killed at least one per year for the previous 40 years of his life, beginning at the age of 14 to 15. Police searched the lake, his property, everywhere. They searched for years. They could never locate a single body, despite having mountains of evidence that he had committed countless murders. Although they could even witness some of these killings on tape, none of the victims could even be identified. Since they couldn't determine a victim, they couldn't determine a crime. After accepting the plea deal for his daughter Jessie's release, he went back to court for sentencing 8 months later. The judge handed him not only the maximum sentence, but added an additional third as aggravation for the brutality of his crimes, for a total of 223 years in prison.
Oh, thank God.
As David Parker Ray entered his cell in prison, he slumped over and died of a heart failure in 2002, having served less than a day of his formal sentence.
Ah, wow. So what'd you think about this
Brutality and
documentary? What'd you think about this one?
The nature of the crimes committed by David Parker Ray from the 1950s through 1999 is without parallel. His ability to con and charm people into his circle to become not only enablers,
why would they
but
do
vested
that?
accomplices is a testament to the effectiveness for persuasion that a charming psychopath can possess. Between the 4 known accomplices of these crimes, a combined approximate total of 34 years of prison time was served between them. Other than the late David Parker Ray himself, all of them walk free among us today. One might wonder what people as calculating and evil as these might do with their freedom. What darkness do they still harbor? What remorse do they feel for their actions? Although this is nigh unknowable to you or I do believe that we all must stand and account for our actions, whether in this life.
This guy was horrible. And not many people have ever heard of him, and he is. He is fucking wild, and I can't believe people haven't heard of him. But you know what we can do? Let's see. We'll see if this works. We lost a subscriber, Miss Muddy. Oh no, we gained a subscriber. We lost one earlier, but we got a new one. Look, how awesome are we doing? Miss Muddy, I'm telling you, you are the best thing that ever happened to my channel. David Parker Ray, Trial Day 1. Is there a trial? Okay, well, it's going to Alex Murdaugh. I don't want to watch that shit. But look, there's an interview. Where the fuck is the interview? Oh, it's only a minute. Why don't we... Interview with David Parker Ray. Oh shit. I guess there's not one. I don't fucking know. Oh, damn. Oh, it says David Burger Ray. Okay. Well, why don't we watch some crazy ass Karens? Oh, we're not gonna watch an hour of it. That's fucking terrible. Okay, here. We got a 20-minute one. This works. A movie was made called What About the Guy? Well, let's see about that one. Hold on. Let's see. Uh, the guy who bulldozed a town. Okay. Uh, okay. I see the movie. You were lied to about Killdozer. Uh, damn, there's a lot of shorts about it, and then there's a movie. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. There's a guy that's talking about it. Okay, so let's see.
Hello, my name is Marvin Heemeyer. I am making this tape. I thought I should make it a year ago. Really didn't think it'd make any difference if I did make it, but a good friend of mine said I should make it. This tape is about my life since I come up here to Grand Lake in 1991.
Show you just a little bit of some of the crazy things that this man has done over the course of the past hour and a half.
It's one of those, it's a kind of a community that in order for you to get ahead, you have to keep the neighbor down. You've got to keep, you got to be bad-mouthing everybody. It's tear the other guy down, however you can do it, legally, of course.
704. 704. Yeah, I'm just here at Windy Gap. Where do you want this 50 with the FMJ?
Basically, what all this is going to prove when it's all over with, I hope it's going to prove to people that meddling in your neighbor's business is destructive. It's going to come back to haunt you. And the only person you have to blame is yourself.
That's the Thompson residence. We think the vehicle is the bulldozer's headed there. We need to have everybody evacuated out of the Thompson's residence. Copy at 1548. 305, we need you to start helping evacuate houses on this block.
This is fucking wild. This is real. How did you find out about this? This is fucking wild to me. Oh my God. How did you find out about this? Did this happen while I was in jail? This is fucking insane. When did this happen? Oh my God.
You had to take me on en masse. Well, I'm going to take you on by myself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Don't forget to chat in the chat and press like and subscribe and tell me what the fuck is going on right now. I don't know what's happening.
Movement 1, Marvin's Journey.
But I've got my rights too. Maybe they're wrong when I exercise these rights, but I really don't care. I am going to exercise this right because we are given this freedom to do what we want to do until we do something wrong, and then we have to pay for it.
Marvin Heemeyer, 22 years young, began his wayward journey to making a live-action Twisted Metal film adaptation in the state of Colorado. Initially, this wouldn't be by choice, as he'd be stationed at the Lowry Air Force Base after joining the U.S. Air Force in 1974. In his post-military life, Marv decided to make the Centennial State his home, moving to Grand Lake in 1989. Just to clear up any confusion, Grand Lake is the sister town to Granby, where most of the events take place, with only 16 miles of rural roads between them. While spending his leisure time snowmobiling the Rocky Mountain National Park, the self-described self-made single man would operate a small chain of muffler shops throughout the state. His personal expertise at welding and interest in snowmobiling made him a well-regarded businessman, and by all accounts, his enterprises went from strength to strength. As friends and neighbors described, quote, Marv would bend over backwards for anyone. As C.S. Lewis once said, even steel, as strong as it is, can be bent or broken by the right kind of pressure. And in the case of the town of Granby, they'd be left cleaning up the debris of a broken man. Literally, not metaphorically.
I've never even heard of this. And this was the longest thing I could find on it. I mean, we could find out more about it, or we can watch the drunk chicks whose stomachs are bigger than their boobs. So, which would you like to do? Everybody chat in the chat. Do you want to watch the bulldozing thing or drunk chicks whose stomach are bigger than their boobs? Let me know. I'm just going to continue this.
As he has described, signs of Marv being an unhinged zealot revealed themselves early. He knew he had to break a few eggs to make a proper muffler repair omelet, such as when he threatened to kill a customer's husband after she refused to pay him for his services. Girl boss too hard or antisocial maniac? Only time will tell. And it did. It was the latter. Quote, if Marv was your friend, he was your best friend. But if he decided he was your enemy, then he was your worst and most dangerous enemy. The extent of Marv's ire reached further than just dodgy clients. The mainstream press in Granby, such as Sky High News and its chief editor, Patrick Brower, would always share a patchy relationship.
Is there no opinion? I mean, this guy might copyright strike me for watching his shit. I didn't realize it showed his face. He's not a bad looking guy. Hey, guy, don't copyright my channel. You are very attractive. I mean, whatever. Please.
With a muffler repair magnate. Marv was enthusiastically in favor of legalizing gambling, going so far as to launching 2 issues of his own newspaper to rally support. Sky News vehemently opposed men having hobbies, apparently, and accused Marv of being a hired gun for the gambling interests. Quote, he accused me of being a liar. I could probably have outrun him, but he had me by 30 years and maybe 40 or 50 pounds. Necessary preamble that establishes the temperament of our protagonist.
See, isn't that a bad looking guy?
Aside, the heart of our tale starts in 1992. Marv entered an auction to acquire 2 acres of land from the Resolution Trust Corporation on behalf of his friend John Kleiner. Marv and John had an agreement where Marv lent him $42,000 to open an auto repair shop. Unwittingly, Marv outbid the former owner of the property, Cody Dochev, thus rocking the boat of a well-connected family in the small town of Granby. You see, Cody originally purchased the certified ready-mix which stood upon those lands in 1972 before losing the property to the saving and loans crisis of the 1990s. Marv claims Cody had berated him for several minutes in a rage after losing the auction property, although Cody himself denies ever speaking to Marv. Their fermenting grudge culminated in an incident that is so infamous that it's synonymous with the town of Granby itself.
And this guy Come to find out his name was Cody Dochev. He came back there and introduced himself to me about the rudest, most arrogant person. I mean, this guy's just a asshole. Come back and just introduced himself kind of by just giving me a talk for about 10 minutes about, you know, who I thought I was and what I was going to do with the property. And I explained to him I was buying it for John Kleiner, and he said he wanted the property, and I said, well, I'll tell you, I'll sell you the property. I said, we were going to pay $66,000, and, you know, I told him I was selling it to John Kleiner, who was going to start on most of there, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. He said, bullshit. He said, I only got, Gus Harris was his buddy there sitting beside him, I guess. Gus wasn't going to pay.
Okay, that is pretty deep. That's a pretty deep grudge. And I'm still not even sure why they hate each other. Around here, down the way in Ohio, like probably fucking 2 cities away, one family deleted another family, like a whole family deleted another unsubscribed another family from God's YouTube. It was like the whole family versus the whole family. Maybe Piketon or something like that. It was a few towns away, like 3 towns away.
More than 50 grand for it. And I says, well, I'm sorry, but I says, you know, I can't just not come down here and spend my money and waste my time and not, you know, make some money on it. So I offered it to him that day for what I was going to sell it to John for, because I could tell the guy was pissed off, and I wasn't there to piss off any people. I mean, this is the only guy of all the properties that sold before his that was doing any screaming at anybody during the auction. For 160 properties were sold that day, and this is the only fool that didn't come down there with enough money to buy his property. I mean, this shows you how day late and a dollar short this fool is.
An unforeseen and unrelated oil spill with Marv's new property meant he'd have to dish out an extra $20,000 to clean up the newly acquired land. This gave his partner John Kleiner cold feet, leaving Marv the sole proprietor. As the saying goes, old habits die hard, so Marv opened Mountain View Muffler to try and recoup his losses. Unbeknownst to the town of Grand Lake, Marvin's life was about to go foobar. Up beyond all recognition. Anticipating the growing pains of a new business, Marv began working with Buddy Wilson to help with the legal side of things. Buddy had close personal links to various families within the county like the Dochevs. Therefore, he'd have an in when dealing with the bureaucracy of the municipal government. Despite this, trouble hit Marv's new business almost immediately. And this linchpin moment that would be the catalyst to the looming chaos of the future would be when Marv came at odds with Granby's sanitation board. They requested that he connect his property to the town's sewer mains, the cost of which was projected to be up to $80,000, nearly double what Marv had spent on the land itself. When Marv found out about this during a meeting of the sanitation district in 1992, he promptly stormed out of the meeting, never to connect to the local sewer mains. Despite brushing off the request and leaving Wilson to cover the details of the case, Marv had unknowingly signed up to the town sanitation district and was still subject to pay their maintenance ordinances, as he never filed for a withdrawal. This meant that at any time, the town could not only levy fines against him, but also foreclose on his property if he refused to pay.
It was in 99 that they're going to put in water and sewer to this 22 acres, or they're going to get it approved. I'm wanting my water and sewer hooked up. And I made this known in the minutes at the Planning Commission meeting and the Town Council meeting. I go down to the Water and Sanitation District and get these minutes, and I start reading them, and I really can't believe these minutes, because there is not one mention of a maintenance easement being required for them to, in order to allow me into the sanitation district. And I was just amazed that they had changed the minutes to reflect that we hadn't talked about that.
Marv seemed to have a knack for making powerful enemies during this process, mainly in the form of the Thompsons. The Thompsons were pillars of the local community, a Granby legacy family, if you will. Since 1949, their excavation business gave them a generational link to the town as well as political sway. Dick Thompson served as the mayor of Granby, and his son, Ron Thompson, became vice president of the sanitation board that Marvin locked horns with. Prior to storming out of the meeting, Sky News editor Patrick Brower described Ron as an outspoken leader against Marv's disregard for connecting to the sewer mains and alleging that he said things to upset Marv during the deliberations. In 1997, Cody Docheff wanted to expand his concrete batch plant, buying up land in and around the family's current lot. The Town Planning Commission recommended buying Marvin's land in order to minimally affect businesses and houses on the Route 40 highway. Despite Cody and Marv agreeing to a $250,000 sell-off, the deal seemingly fizzled out with no formal arrangement.
And this guy named Wilson had made up an appraisal on my property in 1997 and came up with a value of $270,000. And I had offered this property to Cody for $250,000. I said, Cody, I'll walk away from my business, get everything out of here, you buy this place, and for $250,000, which was less than the appraisal, and you're happy, I'm happy. And Cody never would. I gave him a copy of the appraisal, never would come back to me with a counteroffer.
Instead, in the following years, Docheff would submit plans
Miss Mudduck, are you going to bed right after this, or do you want to talk to me on Discord for a minute?
for an indoor concrete plant in the area, with the Town Planning Commission requiring that he rezone the property in the events that he bought it from Marv. And when the news reached Marvin that the Docheffs sought to rezone the land surrounding his muffler shop, he'd up the price from $250,000 to $370,000, following a reappraisal after the zoning request. Unwilling to pay, Cody attempted to compromise as he and Marv negotiated a land swap. Marv would receive a defunct subdivision of the Docheff empire in return for his current 2-acre plot. Marv, not wanting his livelihood and business operations impeded by the swap, requested that Docheff construct an expensive new building for him to continue his business operations. This led to a collapse in negotiations, with Cody claiming this would cost him like over $1 million. It was just not feasible, and Marvin just completely stonewalling any counteroffers. Fearing his entire world was at risk, Marvin pledged to oppose the rezoning and expansion of the concrete plant at every level. He led a grassroots campaign to keep big concrete out, citing the increase in noise, dust, traffic, decent water and air quality having a direct effect on his own business.
Anyway, I tried to buy the property out from under him because I had a friggin' concrete plant next to me, especially upwind of me. I mean, I was going to be right in the dust tail of this whole operation, and that wasn't going to work.
Despite attending every meeting of the rezoning commission, opposition to big concrete dwindled after the Docheffs made a series of pledges reassuring the town officials and the public.
Okay. All right, my lady, then we'll talk tomorrow. I mean, we're not going right now, but I'll tell you tomorrow if I remember. It wasn't nothing important. I was just going to say I was happy that there's no, trolls today.
In April 2001, the plans for construction were approved by the board unanimously, leaving Marv with no choice but to launch a lawsuit against the town. With contracts signed and clients hired, construction for the plant was already well underway. Movement 2, Marvin's Vow.
And it's just uncanny. The after it got started, how I tried to stop it, how every time I did, I failed.
When Marvin's sewage hole reached maximum fecal capacity, he'd hatch a bright idea to use a gas pump to transfer the waste into a local irrigation ditch. When dumping waste into the town's water lines proved controversial, he attempted to illegally hook up to his neighbor's line before being reported to the sanitation district. Putting their foot down after 9 years, the district forbade Marvin from using the land until he connected to the town's sewage system. They further fined him $2,500 for the massive barrel of excrement in the ground, to which Marvin reportedly described it as a, quote, form of terrorism, before muttering, quote, "I'm just gonna bulldoze this whole place to the ground." This is what you call foreshadowing. Despite this seeming all fairly reasonable, there was a catch to abide by the commission's ruling. The Dochefs owned the land that Marv would have to cross in order to hook up to the sewer line. So in June 2001, the family used this as leverage in order to come to a, quote, reasonable resolution to the land dispute. As Joe Dochef recounted, quote, we offered to Marv that if he dropped the lawsuit and the fight and let us proceed with the concrete plant, then he could connect to the sewer line, but Marv refused. Whether or not this quid pro quo sounds fair or reasonable to you, I'll leave it up to you. In Marv's perspective, they were coming after his livelihood, his entire world. Marv's ill-fated lawsuit against the town dragged on through April 2002 until his suit was thrown out by Grand County District Courts on all accounts. Susie Dochef at the time stated, quote,
all right, because this is kind of mean. What they're doing to this guy is like, are you kidding me? Well, I mean, he should hook his pipes to the city, and not to the ocean or whatever, river, whatever. The drinking water, that's right. He should not have done that. So, are we done watching this, or are we still watching this? I'm going to play it till you answer, okay?
Quote, I remember Marv was a little weird at the last meeting. Every step of the process, more and more, you could see the fire burning inside of him. With the Dochefs refusing to give him an easement, Marv was unwilling to shill out tens of thousands of shekels required to connect himself to the sewage system, disputing not only the price, but the reason why he'd have to make such a hefty investment when the current system he had in place was perfectly suitable. Consequently, the town began fining Marv for every day he failed to connect to the sewage system. Marvin came to the conclusion that there was a concrete effort
fucked up.
Intended to undermine his business endeavors.
That's what happened with the weed. Okay, we can stop. Because I was going to say that's exactly what happened to the weed with the tree industry, which is owned by what some have said is one of the kids of Anastasia or something ended up getting the property to all the trees or railroads. That's what it was. It wasn't trees, it was railroads. I don't know if anybody's in that Q stuff. You can let me know for sure what it is. Yes, everyone was assholes all the way around. But anyway, we can all give the pillow some head and the sheet some ass. I gotta finish this sandwich and then I'm going to bed. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to tell you, press like and subscribe. We have gained another subscriber today, and that is fucking awesome. And a lot of that is thanks to Miss Muddy and Tin TV. She brought she brought some people. But Miss Mud Duck, you have also brought people, and it's amazing, and I thank you so much. And also, I think that troll might be one of my cousin Michael's people. I'm gonna ask him, because he kind of talks like Michael. Anyway, enough of that. I want to tell everybody good night before I get off stream. So, good night. I love you.